All right, the last thing we need to be able to do for 2, 4 is we need to be able to factor using imaginary numbers, right? So on this one, just to look at, x squared, let me go back to green. X squared minus 49 is the difference of 2 squares. So when we factor this, we're going to get x plus 7 and x minus 7, right? Because it's the difference of 2 squares. If you had x squared minus 25, you would get x plus 5 times x minus 5, right? So whenever you have the difference of 2 squares, right, it's going to be x plus, you're just going to take the square root of both. The square root of x squared is x, the square root of 49 is 7, and then it's just plus or minus, right? Okay, the problem is if you have x squared plus 49, okay, this is not the difference of 2 squares because difference means subtract. This is the sum of 2 squares, okay? And so when we solve this, right, if we were to graph x squared plus 49, right, x squared, and we transform it, it's going to look like this, okay? So there's no x-intercepts, right? There's no x-intercepts here. So there's no real number factors for x squared plus 49. Okay, but we're going to use imaginary numbers to come up with complex factors, and that's what we're doing here in 2, 4. Okay, so if we look at this, 2x squared plus 98, we want to factor. So the first thing I notice is they both have a 2. We can factor out a 2. Okay, and then we have x squared plus 49. 49. Okay. So we're going to ignore the 2, and we're just going to worry about the x squared plus 49 over here. What we want to do is we want to turn it into the difference of 2 squares, sort of, right? So what we're going to do is instead of x plus squared plus 49, we're going to make this x squared minus negative 49 is what we're going to do. We're going to change this into x squared minus 49. Okay. Yeah, let me write it over here. Okay. So what we're going to do then is do x, and then we're going to take the square root of x squared is x, plus, okay, the square root of negative 49 is going to be, right, square root of negative 1 times square root of 49. We know the square root of negative 1 is I, and the square root of 49 is 7, so it's going to be 7i. So plus 7i, and then x minus 7i. Right, and those are going to be our 2 factors of x squared plus 49. Okay, just to give you another example, let's do our x squared minus 25 example. Let's say x squared plus 25 is what we're trying to factor. Okay, so we're going to make this x squared minus negative 25 because we don't want to change it. So minus a negative is the same as plus. And now we're going to do the difference of 2 squares here. So we're going to do x plus, right, and then x minus. So what goes in here? The square root of negative 25, which is going to be 5i and negative 5i, right? So we have, or I'm sorry, just negative 1 times square root of 25, which is going to be I times 5, which is 5i. So we have plus 5i and minus 5i. Okay? So that's the idea here. So for our 2 times x squared plus 49, right, we're going to change this. We already wrote this over there. I'm just going to write it again. Minus negative 49. Put negative 49. Okay. And then when we do this, we're going to get x plus, right, the square root of negative 49 is going to be 7i. So plus 7i. And then we're going to do x minus 7i. Okay, and that's going to be my factored form of 2x squared plus 98. Right, so we could do 2x plus 7i, x minus 7i. right? All right, let's do one more example. I think this is pretty straightforward. Yeah, let's do this one. Okay, so 6 is divisible, evenly divisible into both 6x squared and 24. So I'm going to factor out a 6, and I'm going to be left with x squared plus 4, right? So we want to change that into x squared minus -4. So that's going to become x plus, right? And then x minus the square root of -4, right? That's like the square root of -1 times the square root of 4 is going to be I times 2, or 2i. So plus 2i minus 2i, right? And I think it's that straightforward. Okay, and that's factoring.